Triambakam yajamahe sugantim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiva bandhanam mrityormukshyamamritat.
Hi, this is Amalia Eon Karis.
Hey everyone, it's Satya, and you're listening to
Love, Sex, and the Hidden Agenda.
Okay, so you leave your husband, you're divorcing your husband, you're in India. I don't even know at this point, you've been there for a year. I mean, where did you go, and how do people even treat woman who's divorced? Or
it was bad.
I mean, you were he was your whole
he was my
life.
Everything at that point, like my everything, because he came into my life when my dad died and when I had my massive awakening. And through my whole awakening experience, waking up to all these dimensions and having this kundalini raging through my body, I ended up having to walk away from all of my blood relatives and my friends, the place where I was born, everywhere, because I couldn't function around that much toxicity. Like I was receiving too much information. I was in meditative states like 8-9 hours a day. And he was the only one I felt safe with, because he was the only one who understood what was happening to me, because, you know, he grew up in a lineage of tantrics who honor the experience. And he understood to enough of a degree, and he was going through his own awakening, that we just became these allies, tuning ourselves. And, you know, who else is going to meditate with me for 8 hours a day? So when we went to India.
Wait, can I just say something? And also, I mean, for a woman, especially, I feel like to have a man who can navigate waters like that with her and be in that kind of, like, understand her feelings and understand you to that degree. I mean, I'm imagining, you know, I can feel how just everything you went through. Like,
he had deep reverence for the feminine wisdom. Like, he understood it. He worshipped it in the way that he understood the wisdom in it. And, you know,
and he was married to you for 5 years in a celibate way as well, or something,
yes,
right?
Yeah. We'd been together for 5 years, and all of that time we were navigating some incredible experiences, like totally, you know, life altering experiences. And so moving to India, we were both hoping to, like, be closer to the motherland and be around other, you know, spiritual teachers that could help us navigate this stuff. But when we got to India, he became more of a business person, and I went into farming. Like, just the role reversal was pretty dramatic. And I felt like I didn't know who he was in India, because, you know, we change personalities when we live in different countries, because the land and the people, and it brings out a different aspect of us. And I left him after a year of being there with him, but I stayed in India because I had nothing else. Like, I had moved all of my money into Indian banks. I had moved everything I owned or sold it to India. So there was nothing for me back in the States. And I had started doing really purposeful work in India, working with farmers and doing organic farming. And I was working also with spiritual leaders there and really tuning my gifts. So I didn't have any interest to leave India, but any sane person would have, because it was completely nuts. I mean, a single woman, white, living alone in her mid-30s without children is basically a whore in their eyes. Doesn't matter the fact that I had been celibate for 5 years and was living like a nun. They treated me like I was an outcast, even though he's the top caste. So I was married to the top caste, but nobody leaves a top caste. So divorce in India is really frowned upon. Like a divorcee is an outcast.
Wow, that's worse than frowned upon.
Yeah, it's an outcast. You're basically like, it doesn't matter if you're being beaten or whatever, you should stay in that marriage. Like women don't have the same rights, but there was no way that. And so he was kind of in shock that I was leaving him also. Like for him, it was like, how could you leave me? Like, that's not going to happen. I'm like, no, it's happening. Like I would rather live alone than live with you and feel disrespected. You know, because that small turn of him having this affair, like, it wasn't that he was having an affair. That's like the wrong thing to call it. He fell in love with someone. I was totally fine with him falling in love with someone or even sleeping with someone else. The problem was I felt disrespected. I felt like I wasn't being honored with my needs, and I didn't feel safe in my own home. And I started realizing like there was this level of oppression over me. Like I felt owned by him. Like I wanted to go get a farm up in the Nilgiri Mountains, and he only would let me get a farm in Mysore because if I was in the Nilgiris, it was too far for him, but it was going to be closer. I was like, what? So I had to leave and go do what I wanted to do in a country that is so repressed for female independence. Like female independence doesn't really exist in India because it's dangerous. Like women do not live alone or operate without a family because they're not safe. So I had 4 dogs already. So it just was me and my 4 dogs. And it was a really wild life. I mean, I realized I had changed the way I dressed when we lived in America because of the attack I had. And he said I dressed too sexy. Then I started dressing very conservatively. And then being in India, it was very dangerous to dress anything but Indian salwar kameez. So I was always dressed in the kurta tops and those pants. You know, I never showed skin. And then I always covered my hair even because I didn't want anyone to know I was a foreigner from far away. And, I changed the way I spoke because he didn't like when he met me that I swore so much. So I removed the F word and I started speaking more. I felt like I went through finishing school being with him because he was from such a high caste that I had to learn how to be a proper lady when I was in India. Goodness. And I'm just not used to that. I've always lived on my own. I'm a bit rough around the edges. And I really had to polish myself up to sit with his family, and the people, the upper castes of India expect a certain level of diplomacy and conduct, right, with how women are meant to be. Like I used to have my hair kind of, I don't know, I always did like the messy style, and his mom would be like, can you brush your hair? I'm like, no, I don't brush my hair. Like I'm into this look, like,
right. Wow.
Look, the sort of beach tossed look that doesn't fly there. You have to pull, you can't even wear your hair open, by the way, you have to pull it back. If you wear your hair down, it means you're like a loose woman. So you have to tie it up. It has to be in a braid or pulled off your face. And
I think I wore mine down when I was there.
Oh yeah.
And it was blonde at that point. Oh yeah, no wonder they were trying to touch me and
exactly, because if you wear lipstick in India and you look a man in the eyes, you're a prostitute. So that's like every foreign woman, because we're taught to make eye contact. I mean, I make eye contact so that I can tell if I can trust someone. But you're not to look in the eyes of men in Asian countries. Women should not make eye contact with men. It's like you're making a move on them. You're like flirting with them. And provoking them if you look at their eyes.
Oh, for goodness sakes. I probably should have had a training on that before I went over there. But anyway, so you're there and you're basically brokenhearted.
I was
You
broken.
felt like
I was
you'd
broken.
lost everything, had nothing. Like basically you felt like your life was over. But from what you're saying now, it sounds like later you started to piece together, wait a second. I mean, if you had to
It
go through
wasn't
all those
initiation.
changes,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, that didn't, I mean, so you thought your life was over and then what happened?
Well, I was in such a devastating mess that there was no way I was going to go back to the States like that, because
Oh, yeah, no.
I didn't know who would receive me. I didn't feel like I could start over in the US. I was in such an altered, by this point, I had been living 5 years with my gifts of seeing on full blast. So
Okay.
I saw multiple dimensions all day long, and I was starting to control it, but actually the anger helped me to, I think it was really like the final purification, because when someone has a Kundalini awakening, you have to clear all of your channels. That's why I wasn't having sex, because I saw that I had a bunch of trauma in my second chakra, which I've spoken about in other podcasts. But when the energy starts moving into the different energy centers in your body, whatever traumas are unhealed, it gets activated. So I was in this massive purification mode at that point for 5 years. And then this thing happens, and it's triggering like my deepest wound of abandonment and betrayal, which goes back not only to my birth family, but then many past lives of having this same feeling of deep betrayal from those who I'm supposed to trust, who, I've left my care to, or, as a child in this lifetime, my parents who didn't protect me from all of the harm that came to me as a kid, and feeling abandoned and all of that. So I was in my mid 30s feeling like fully abandoned and lost and confused. And I'm in this ancient landscape where I was having so much memory of many different lifetimes I've had in India, and working with the spiritual master. I mean, they recognize me. I would go places and they would tell me who I was from a past life. It was crazy. And I was getting all this confirmation from these gurus, people who could see like I could through timelines and confirm with me. And I was finally getting the validation that I had been seeking. So when I left him, it opened me up to all the, I had no friends. I knew nobody. And now I was alone, exploring and meeting people. And I was taken to the right people. And I opened all these opportunities that if I was married with him and still had the farm, I would never have.
You'd have had to be hanging out with his people.
Yes. And so I was no longer isolated when I left him. I was out in the world, and I had to fend for myself, but it strengthened me, and it really shaped everything. And then working with the gurus that I was meeting, who I became business partners with, and then they were telling me from all the activations that I had and all the information I had, and they were the ones giving me the mics and really encouraging me to start teaching and sharing, and validating me. And then their followers were validating me. So I started my speaking career and my teaching, from being there in India with them. So even though it was like such a dark night, like going through that whole experience with that woman, it took me a couple years to admit it, but after like the second year, I realized that she was the teacher that made me really face that deep, dark wound, that mother wound, the female wound, the sisterhood, the break in the sisterhood that was so painful for me. And I had to pass through the gates of my own hell, basically, to get to
Wow.
the other side. And I was telling you in the last episode that I saw red for a year.
I
And
can't believe that.
I
Ugh.
literally, like, I would wake up and everything was red. And I was like, oh my God, the anger is piercing my eyes. And people who looked at me, I mean, they would call me Kali. I mean, they were scared. People were scared. I was angry. Like, when you meet angry people, like those road rage people,
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
it was a kind of anger. And I didn't know how to pacify it. And so I just
Mm-hmm.
started meditating a lot, like every single day for a year. I would sit at my altar and I would pray to Kali, and I would ask her to show me how to purify, how to digest the rage. Because the rage, I knew it was way beyond this girl who wore the red dress, the red lipstick,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it was way beyond that. It was from timelines and dimensions and within me and festering wounds that needed to be purged. And I think it was about 4 years after that I got jaundice while being in India. And that was a huge cleansing. And it was after I healed from a year of jaundice that I finally felt like I had purified the majority of the anger that I was carrying. But yeah, it was.
Oh, and jaundice. Well, I mean, for just as far as mind, body, spirit, medicine goes, the liver is connected to anger, the feelings of anger and frustration. And they say, if in life you're experiencing a lot of frustration and anger and irritability, that you should probably do a liver cleanse.
Yeah, because we store it all there.
Yeah, and so the liver stores that. And Chinese medicine and acupuncturists, I mean, it's a well-known thing. But yeah, because for a second I thought jaundice. Wait, how is that connected? Wait, what? But jaundice is connected to the liver, obviously. So
Yeah.
holy smokes! I mean, that thank goodness you were able to move through all that and actually see the red, because otherwise you might have just squished all that, bypassed it. God knows what you would have done then, but instead you transmuted into this. I mean, this started your whole entire spiritual teaching thing, right?
Yeah, it was the initiation. And I think, for people who understand, what the dark night of the soul is, this was a big dark night, and it lasted a good year. There was a whole year where I saw red. Like, I was seeing red for like a year. I could not function. I started smoking pot again. Like, I hadn't smoked pot probably for, at that point, maybe like 5 years. And I started needing to smoke pot. And I was wondering, like, wow, I was in this like Buddha illuminated state of purity. I was doing yoga hours a day. I was meditating hours a day. I was in this heightened awareness, blissed out state. And now all I see is red. And the only way I can function or even get out of bed is to smoke and take the edge off. And then I realized, because I had smoked pot when I was a teenager, when my parents got divorced, when I was being, stalked at school, and a lot of things, bad things had been happening to me. I was escaping I never drank alcohol, but pot would take the edge off and allow me to like just not think about, not process or be in this state of fear and fight or flight thing.
It's interesting you say that. This is just kind of a weird little thing on the side, I'll say, but in my years of working with a lot of addictions, I would always notice that the people who specifically had anger or rage would specifically choose marijuana Like, it
Yeah,
was
it
always,
really, yep.
yeah, that was always their drug of choice. And I kind of reverse engineered that because people would come in, with the specific drug of choice, and then I would notice, oh, their real issue is this, and so then it got to the point where I would know automatically without even looking at a chart, and sometimes I could even just look at somebody and know, like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, they've got they've got anger, rage, their drug of choice is marijuana before I would even talk to them. And so it
Yeah,
was.
and it was like a big aha moment for me when I understood that, because I couldn't understand, I'd been so pure and living this like nun monked out life, and here I was enmeshed in rage and smoking pot. Like it's like the pendulum had swung so far
Mm,
off, and I was having to navigate. And in my meditation, I realized that, okay, this is because of it became obvious. Okay, I smoke because of the anger, and I've always smoked because of the anger. Okay, well, now that I know that, how do I deal with the anger? So I just started taking the anger to my meditation room, and I was like, okay, instead of smoking, I'm going to sit until I get to the core of the anger. And then I took another whole year. Every day I meditated on unwinding the anger. And sometimes it would take hours. I would just sit there and bawl and thrash around on my temple floor, trying to like get to what was making me so angry. And finally, after like a year of that, I was able to not feel like, I felt like I had unwound so much of it. And then it was another year after that, I was kind of reconciling what's the word? Reconciling
reconciling
with my ex-husband. And we started healing verbally. Like I finally was able to talk to him about it. And then I got jaundice, and that was sort of like, okay, now it's complete. So that whole thing was like a 4-year purging from the initiation, from the dark night to the initiation, and the whole year of seeing red and the Kali, and then the purifying and unwinding. And now, since that time I did that long meditation after that year, I don't have any desire for pot. Like it's not something, it's still the thing. Like if I were to do anything and like have a drink or whatever, I would prefer pot, but I don't gravitate towards it, and I never need it again.
Mm-hmm. Well, you dealt with the real issue.
I finally dealt with the anger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, you really dealt with it. You really, really dealt with it.
Yeah, I think when we're in something and it's so bad and we think we're like going to die. I thought I was going to die multiple times. I thought I was going to die of a broken heart. I thought I was going to die of my grief. I thought I was going to die of my anger, my loneliness. I went dark for a good year living in India, and I really didn't see any hope. It was guttural, and I was behaving in ways I didn't even know who I was anymore. Like I thought, what has happened to me? India has, like regurgitated inside me into something that I can't process. And then from that, my greatest strength, like I'm so strong because of that experience, having had to live through that level of feeling betrayed and enraged and alone and in a foreign country. And, I didn't share how, I got so confused about my husband. I didn't trust him anymore, that I withdrew all my money from the bank, stored it in my closet. And because the banks wouldn't put it in my name because I was technically owned by him.
What?
So I was enraged. Yeah, because I wasn't a normal.
Money you brought from the United States.
Yes, all of my
converted
life
over there.
savings
What?
was in a joint account. I could only be on a joint account. I couldn't have my own independent
Women aren't allowed
name.
to have their own money?
Well, it was mainly because I was a foreigner. Like I was married to him and my papers weren't completed. My documentation of being a permanent resident wasn't completed. So the banks would not give me an account without his name. And in fact, I couldn't have anything without his name on it. So even though I had left him, I had no rights whatsoever. And I couldn't even divorce him because if I divorced him, I would have been deported immediately. And I didn't have a life in the US anymore. Everything was in India. So I was fighting not only, my own oppression, but the oppression of the whole country and of the women there. And, all the female feticide is still commonly practiced in India. Like they don't want girls. They'll kill their babies if they're girls because they want a boy. It's very, very common. And so is honor killings happen every day. I mean, every time you open the newspaper, it's another honor killing in the village where the young girl was seen with a boy holding hands or kissing or out after curfew, and they'll kill her because the family will be shamed by her, scandalous ways. Or if a girl falls in love with a guy who's below the caste of her family, they will kill the daughter in honor of the family's name. It's bad. And so I was living in that old world where even though I had done all this spiritual work, I was being treated like an outcast. And yet on one level, I would work with the gurus. And I mean, one time there were 60,000 people. They brought me on stage and they're like bowing to me. Imagine 60,000 people. It's like a sea of heads. And they've got you on this big screen going out and I'm talking to all of them and they treat me like a god. And then I go back to my neighborhood where I lived and nobody there knows that I do that spiritual work. And they're basically like wanting to stone me or kill me because they think I'm so scandalous living without a man.
Oh, wow.
So it was just like this. It was a dark.
I can't imagine.
But it strengthened me in a way that has it's helped me like embrace the totality of myself, of my human nature, of I don't know, I feel like I had to digest lifetimes upon lifetimes of my incarnations in a few short years. And I think sometimes, when we go through dark nights of the soul, especially those who've had a spiritual awakening and then the dark night comes. So when the pendulum swings from like Buddhahood to absolute hell, it's because you're being chiseled. These are huge initiations for learning how to overcome like the self limitations and the psyche and the way that we trap ourselves in the illusion of pain and suffering. And so I had to like fight my way through to come to this place where it's, still stuff happens to me, but it's my foundation is so strong because of these intense experiences that I've, like go through fire.
I love it that you said that because I've so often thought that I was maybe a better person or I had it all together or something in my 20s. And it was kind of like I had Buddhahood then. And then, oh boy, did I get, yeah. And then it was just, face down in the stampede for years. And I was, and I still, until this moment, until you said that, if you're at a certain level or you have a certain, you've had an awakening and then you get slammed, it's it's so much almost harder or something. I don't know. But until you said that, I never pieced that together. I thought that I just did something severely wrong and there must be something really wrong with me to have known.
Oh, I thought that too. That means you're on the brink of a big breakthrough, because every time this has happened, because it hasn't only happened that one time. I mean, that was like 10 years ago or something. I've had, now they happen in shorter cycles. But I know the cycle so well. Like the cycle, I have really mapped out that dark night of the soul cycle. There's an awakening, there's an aha, there's a massive download, and then there's a whole tumbling, spiraling hall of mirrors illusion of hell until you realize that it's an illusion and you find that 0 point in the center and you kind of like pop your way through in a state of transcendence and laughter at the cosmic joke of how dramatic you made it all. Because then when you pop out, you're like, God, what a fun ride. It's like being on a roller coaster at the amusement park. It's like the horror show, the haunted house, right? But when you're in it, you're like, whoa, 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 freak out. And then you get out and you're like, what a ride. I want to do it again.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I want to do that again.
I'm like, at first I had the chills with everything you just said. Then I'm like over here laughing and slapping my leg. I hope that I don't know if you can hear that. But, oh my goodness. Yes. Because when I popped out, I thought, I thought I was in a prison all those years. I wasn't.
You're just in your mental torture, like
terrifying. Yeah, it was so easy.
To go through that chiseling. You know how, what's it called when they like that inferno, when they burn the alchemists burn the liquid gold or whatever. What's the word? Not the inferno, but they put it, the cauldron thing. Anyway, they're melting metal, right? Metal has to melt and then it takes another shape. They put the mold on it and then it pops out in this beautiful new design and it's solid again. Well, that's what happens to us. We have to go through that purifying process to see the shape that we're being molded into. And it sucks when you're in it, but if you can find the center, that's why I teach. That's why I do everything I do. You know how many times I've been through those initiations? I can't even count anymore. I mean, why do I call the retreats rebirth and renewal? And I master the art of change course and all of that, because everyone has to go. This cycle is the cycle of life, the death and rebirth. And the faster and more comfortable we get with it, the more we become masters of our reality and masters of the next cycle.
I think that's why we like diamonds so much, because diamonds are made from coal, from the pressure, coal under pressure. I mean, black, yucky, plain old coal under pressure. What? I mean, really? And then something shiny and beautiful. And I just ran across that quote from Lao Tzu. And it was something like, what the caterpillar calls the end is what we call a butterfly. Yeah. So there you go.
That's it.
Whew.
Happy trails.
I got chills.
Yeah. The moment of death is when we actually are emerging.
So beautiful, so beautiful, so beautiful.
That's why we all need doulas.
We do.
Yes.
Oh, we should do a whole thing on that right there. I have things to say about doulas.
Yes, you do. Thanks for listening, everyone.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for hanging out with us. If you'd like to contact us and stay in touch with us, you can find us at lovesexagenda.com. That's lovesexagenda.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, Love, Sex, and the Hidden Agenda. Bhargo devasya dhimai
Di